is an incredible, and Sebastian, you represent hope. You represent everything good about this world. We are so excited that you're running this webinar. Kathy, thank you so much. Sebastian, we're ready to go. Okay. Are we excited?
Just really quick, I just want to thank you also because I think you are a big part of this journey. I still remember the first time that I walked into your place. I was very nervous, very scared. I just wanted the best for my son, and I knew how behind he was. And you know, we created a plan. All those hours that you spent together with me past 1 o'clock in the morning, creating a future for Sebastian. All those classes that you suggested, all those steps that we gave. I really honestly think that it was really hard and it was a long journey, but it would have been different without your guidance. So your guidance was absolutely important. And I just want to thank you and let you know that you are definitely somebody very special to us. You are a guardian angel. And you know, you're always going to be in our lives for sure. And I want to thank you for what you did for my son. He did a lot of work, but like I said, without the guidance, it would not have been possible.
Thank you so much. And thank you for letting us push your child and work with your child and give your child all sorts of prep and material and work and the hard work and effort. Thank you so much. This is a very special webinar. We get to see the fruits of our labor together. And I really just want to say thank you because, you know, it's a community and that's what we've established here. Sebastian, thank you so much for hosting. Kathy, you are a role model on so many levels. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It is an honor to know you. You are a power woman. Thank you. All right, Sebastian, we are ready to listen to what you are going to tell us about your journey and really your pathway. So I think we're all set. You have co-host access and I am monitoring the chat box if there's anything that you need. And I just want to tell everyone that you can always chat if you need to with the host and co-host. So I have it right here. We're really excited to listen. And first and foremost, we just want to congratulate you on this amazing milestone in your life. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate
Without further ado, let's go. Let's start from the beginning.
Okay, cool. So my application was a little weird. I'll just start off with that. So I actually applied to MIT through Questbridge.
Can you make it larger just so everyone sees everything?
Yeah. Is that better?
Yeah, much better.
Okay. So I applied through Questbridge. So basically I was doing the college match program. So the application deadline was actually in September. It was the end of September that I had to submit this. I had to write some essays and then basically I'll talk about my extracurricular activities, my classes, and and some test scores. And that it was basically until I had to wait until around the middle of October before they said, okay, now you can move on to the next step, when they declared me a National Merit Scholarship finalist. And that's when I actually submitted the supplements for the schools that I ranked. So MIT was one of those schools. But unfortunately, I didn't actually get matched with a college through Questbridge. So what ended up happening with MIT was that my application, both with the Questbridge essays and everything, as well as the MIT supplements that I had submitted, all of that was put into the early action admissions process for MIT. And that's when in the middle of December, I saw that I got in. So for those who don't know, I am a senior at Stuyvesant High School. These are just some of the things that I put on my Questbridge application. So my GPA is 93.62. This semester, I'm taking linear algebra, which is a post-AP math class, existentialism, another post-AP English class. Both of these are like college classes. Next CS, this is kind of similar to APCS, but it's more like an elective. So the curriculum is very similar, but it's not, focusing on the AP exam in May. And then I'm taking AP macroeconomics and AP physics and mechanics. So for AP scores, I submitted all of them that I took. I didn't take that many because at Stuyvesant, you're only allowed to take 3 per year. So I'm still waiting on 2 for this year. And sophomore year, I was only allowed to take 1 because of the AP limit. So for my test scores, BC, I got a 5, chemistry 4, US history 4, and world history 4. And then SAT, I mean, I won't lie, I didn't do the best on this, but I took it sophomore year and then I got a 1500. I was planning on taking it again, but ultimately I figured that it wouldn't matter as much, you know, when you actually give my application like a holistic view. So I didn't actually end up retaking it. I just got a 1500. Um, but yeah. And then for extracurricular activities, I feel like this was what really, made me stand out, especially with boxing. I've been doing it now for 13 years. I started when I was 4 years old, now, 17. I've done it, I've competed, locally, regionally, and at the national level. Um, I put it right here, like these are some of the tournaments that I've won over the years. Right now, I'm ranked number 9 in my weight class, 17, 18, 57 kilogram, which is 125-pound weight class. So when I talked about my extracurriculars, because I actually ended up writing my like really big college essay about boxing, because it's just taking up such a big part of my life that I could never talk about myself as a student without mentioning it. Like I end up talking about this later when I write my essays, but within like during the week, I would spend about maybe 3 hours every day, training, and then I have to, obviously travel across the country to compete. So there's a lot of time devoted to the sport. So I feel like obviously like that's not what you see in a lot of applicants. Especially a sport like boxing, it's very independent. It's not like a team sport like, football or soccer where you can get recruited. Like this is something that forces you to have like a special kind of independence. But yeah, I'll talk about it more when I get into my essay.
Do you want me to interrupt as you're speaking just because I kind of want to do like my own analysis also?
Yeah, of course.
Is that okay? Like we'll do some back and forth.
Yeah, no problem.
What grade did you start boxing? Like
I
what
grade? I don't even think I was in school yet. This was when I was 4 years old.
So you're like 4 years old boxing. So what is the application reflecting is that you are consistently in one sport as opposed to being like a nomad. Like you're not like in 10 different activities and you're doing 10 activities casually, or you're involved in 10 after school clubs and you kind of like eat pizza at the clubs. So just from an analysis standpoint, you're focusing on one activity and you're doing it extraordinarily well to a point where you're, state and national champion. So it's one activity going strong. So that's what I'm seeing in the application. In terms of the SAT, if you go up a little bit, you scored the 15, I think it was 10 super score, like right around there. So, but you took the test. This is very interesting. So you took the test in the 9th grade. So the prepping took place very early on. So I do want to, stress that because MIT requires the SAT scores. You kind of jumped into SAT prep extremely early on. Do you feel that the SHSAT prep helped position you for SAT prep?
Oh, definitely, especially with the reading, because a lot of the topics that were taught in SHSAT were basically carried over into SAT, like both in reading and math. There's a lot of overlap.
So this is kind of a loaded question because you did SHSAT prep. So you're at Kweller from 7th to 8th grade, right? You're doing SHSAT prep. And then you barely leave a 12-month window. You jump into SAT and you knock it out of the water with a 1500. So here's where we stand right now. You did SHSAT and you did not wait 3 years to go into SAT prep. You're like, no, I already have the foundation from SHSAT. So I also just want to do a quick analysis in that one also so that everyone just sees that he jumped in. And then you took the maximum amount of APs allowed at the high school each year, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, we'll keep going.
And then another extracurricular that I put on the Questbridge application was that I was on the Stuyvesant High School math team. I was part of the math team for freshman and sophomore year. I ended up leaving after junior year just because I realized that it wasn't something that I was willing to fully commit into. Obviously, because of all the time that I spent doing boxing, like I just felt that it was more important to me than being on the math team. But I felt that I should mention it on my application because it shows a different side of me. Like I'm not just an athlete. I'm also pretty strong academically. These are some other programs that I did. The ones that are not highlighted, I actually didn't end up putting on the Questbridge application because you could only put 5 extracurricular activities. So I just put whichever ones I felt were the most important. So
And can you just go into quickly, how did the Questbridge application work? Like, did you hang out until Christmas time, senior year, and then suddenly decide to apply to Questbridge January 1, 2023? Like, what was the timeline for Questbridge opportunities?
let's see if I can actually find.
I mean, you don't really have to go into it. I mean, if you want, but I just want to give everyone that opportunity
Yeah,
so
so
that they know when you were starting this path.
yeah, I started this in about September because that's when the
Yeah, you
application
can hit
actually
that
opened.
image. That image. Yeah, you can hit the
So-
image. That's a good one.
Ooh, okay, cool. So as you see here, September 27th is the due date for the original application. And then, so that's when I had to, have all my essays and all my scores completed. And then in October, that's when I was notified if I had actually become a finalist. So, fortunately I did become a finalist. So what that basically meant was that I was able to rank colleges. So I ended up ranking um, Stanford, Princeton, MIT, Caltech, and Yale. And basically the way that it would work is now I would have to submit supplements to each of those schools, which was due November 1st. And then depending on where I ranked them, the application would go to the college. And then depending on, both my application and my financial status, because the main thing for Questbridge is that you actually get a full scholarship if you get matched to a college. But obviously you have to meet some financial requirement. I don't remember exactly what it is. So basically, like they'll go down the list if you qualify financially, and if you get matched, then on December 1st, when they tell you, then that's where you end up going. You get in like early decision almost with a full scholarship, and then if you don't get matched, which is what ended up happening to me, then like it says, review admission opportunities and next steps. So basically, what that means is for some of the schools that you ranked, you get moved into regular decisions, so you don't actually know if you get into the college until I want to say like March or April. But the nice thing with MIT was that they actually, instead of putting you in regular decision, they put you in early action. So I was able to find out in December whether or not I had gotten in. So yeah.
Oh, good.
In terms of like financial aid, I'm still figuring that out. I'm not sure yet. I'm still waiting for them to get back to me. But yeah. Okay, so back with the extracurriculars. So I talked about boxing and math team. I also did the Columbia University Science Honors Program. I started this beginning of sophomore year because you were only able to apply from freshman year. So basically this is just like an weekend program for high school students that want to take courses in math and science. So they had things like explorations into data science, human physiology, biochemistry, programming.
So how do you
So
get, can you just take a step back? How do you, because this is a highly selective program, how did you get into this like diamond of a program? Can you quickly look up the just what the selection is for that also? God, and everyone who is annoyed with me interrupting, you'll thank me later. All right, go ahead. So everyone take a look at this program because this is super selective. And again, starting with SHSAT prep and then going into SAT prep, you actually have to take an entrance test to get into this highly selective program. So I'm plugging Kweller again, shamelessly. All right, but go ahead. All right, so how do you get in to this program that you got into?
So there's an online application that you have to fill out. You have to upload your transcript as well as writing an essay talking about your interest and background in STEM. You also need a letter of recommendation, and I remember there's a 2-hour entrance exam that you have to complete. Basically tests your abilities in different types of math as well as different types of science. Like I remember they had some math questions that were like that's not really taught like through traditional math. Like it's something that you would know if you did like math team. Like they had those
Correct.
types of competition questions. So being on the Stuyvesant math team freshman year, I had some experience with that. So I feel like that definitely helped me with my application. But as you can
So
see,
it's
like
all
it wasn't
plugging in, right? Like everything's plugging into everything else.
right.
SHSAT prep kind of was level 1, right? From
Hmm.
there, you're like, okay, I know this material. I'm going to do SAT prep early on. Again, this was my recommendation, so I'll get a +1 on this. But from there, you took the initiative and you're like, I'm going to join the math team at Stuyvesant because I already know all this math. I've been doing SHSAT prep. I know SAT. So now you join math team. Math team leads you to see all sorts of questions that you inevitably wind up seeing on Columbia SHP,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So see, everything's plugging, right? So that puts you in, okay.
Yeah. So then what was it like after freshman year? That's when they told me that I had gotten in. So then, now I just it actually ended the semester, I want to say like 2, 3 weeks ago. So now I'm waiting until around February for the classes to start. But it's basically just a 2.5 hour class every Saturday. You get to choose the class, like they'll give you a list and then you get to rank them according to what you would like. But it's really interesting. Like it's definitely a pretty good supplement. Um, like
And then
it's
it
definitely
says
helped me with
here,
my
if you're
classes.
eligible, the College Board wants to see SAT, SAT. Wait, did you have to give that also or no? The entrance
No, I didn't. I
exam,
didn't have to give the SAT or ACT. I just took the 2 hour exam.
which was, and I just want to confirm, it was math, English, science, so everything here. So can you just highlight it? So this is what's on the SHP test:
Yeah,
algebra,
this.
geometry, trig, probability, and science.
Hmm.
And it technically says no special studying, but everyone I know who got in studied. So just realistically. So
Yeah.
I just want to put it out there. All right, let's keep going.
So yeah, that's what I've been doing for 3 years now. Then this past summer, I actually did some research. So I applied to the Columbia University Engineering the Next Generation program, which basically was a program that allowed me to go to Columbia's science or STEM school and work with PhD students under a professor. Her name was Professor Keza. So basically, what we did was we studied fruit flies, and we were able to basically grow our own like fruit flies. We would cross them and their genetics. So obviously, like some of the stuff that you learn in bio with like Mendelian genetics and making the Punnett squares and all that, like that came into play here. And then we were observing how like the embryo grew for the offspring, and basically like these embryos contained specific encodings in their DNA, which allowed us to basically see the cell membranes of the embryo under a specific microscope. So we were able to basically track how the embryos developed over time, and then we were able to make movies doing this. So that was a really really cool experience. I definitely learned a lot there. All the classes that I had taken at Stuyvesant in biology and chemistry, like they helped me better understand basically what they were doing. And also through this experience I found an interest in research, which I don't think I talked about it for MIT, but I know I brought it up for some other supplements. So yeah. This is just some volunteer experience. I didn't actually end up talking about this on the application just because it was for such a short time that I didn't feel like it was as important. So I'll just, skip that. So for QuestBridge, they had 2 short answers and then 2 larger essays. So for the first short answer, it was to tell you about one of the proudest achievements and what it says about you. So, I mean, obviously this has changed now, but at the time, I would say that my proudest achievement was actually getting into Stuyvesant. And so this essay was basically talking about how, when I was back in 7th grade, um, there weren't very many students in my school that actually went to specialized high schools. I believe like the year before me, only one person had actually gotten into Brooklyn Tech, and nobody to Bronx Science, nobody to Stuyvesant. So, the main problem with my school was that their curriculum wasn't up to the level with the curriculum that was covered on the SHSAT. So, there weren't very many high hopes when I actually spoke to my guidance counselor for high school about, taking the SHSAT and, possibly getting into Stuyvesant. Um, of course, my mother, as she said, reached out to Miss Kweller, and we were able to make a plan, as I wrote here, to basically, take the SHSAT prep, which I ended up doing for, I believe it was like 10 months. So, there was a lot of work that went on because, as I say here, I had to, basically juggle this preparation with schoolwork and boxing. Um, for about 9 of those months, I was actually not able to box because, I was basically going to classes like every day and doing extra help sessions and all that. Like it was a really big commitment considering I didn't have as much time as other students would have had to prepare for the exam. But
I want to just interrupt for a second just to tell all of you that this is just a very sincere essay, and I like just want to do like that analysis. Like it's not really like big words or big sentences. It's just sincere honesty, and that is so clear. This was so hard. And keep in mind, Sebastian's traveling from Brooklyn to Queens to Kweller Prep to do test prep, and we have a lot of kids. I think it's fair to say every single student at Kweller has something else going on. Like no one only does SHSAT prep. So remember, like it is a sacrifice. And I will tell you myself, as a child of immigrants, as I was understanding what it took to study, because I didn't know what it meant to study. Like I didn't totally get it. And I later understood you don't see daylight. You just study and study and study because you have an end goal. And I did that for my college admissions tests, and then I did it for my LSAT. And I straight up did not see daylight when I was studying for the bar exam. Morning till night, I was just studying, but I had an end goal and I wanted those higher degrees. I was determined to get those degrees. And I think that that's so clearly conveyed here. And this is so clear in your essays that you are devoted. And I really just want to say thank you so much for sharing it so openly, because you and I don't like script it. We just like said, will you do the webinar? And
right.
I just thank you for being so honest and saying like this is hard. So thank you so much. And again, I just want to remind everyone the timeline. What month are you submitting these QuestBridge applications in?
September.
So this is, everyone pay attention, September of senior year. So this is not like, oh, let me call you, Thanksgiving. Hey, Kweller, I need some help. This is like September of senior year. You're on top of your game. All right. And these are already, I just want to be very clear, submitted. These are submitted essays in September. This is not, oh, let me finally open up my application. This is, I
Right.
have thought about what to write. How much time do you feel you gave yourself to write the essays, to craft it, to determine what you wanted to write about?
Oh, I mean, if I'm being honest, I did procrastinate this a little bit. So I ended up
Or
having, I want to say 3 weeks to do them. But I
so
didn't
is that
think
like
that,
August? Is it fair to say, like, because I want to be hyper specific with what month you started working on essays? Because a
yeah, it
lot
was
of
about end of
students
August.
think, I don't know, they're in a dream. A lot of students think they have January 1 to work on
Hmm.
essays, and it's not accurate at all.
Right.
So fair to say before you started senior year of high school, you're already like, okay, I'm gonna this. So your version of procrastinate is August before senior year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good.
Yeah. And then for the second short response, this one was a little weird. It took me a minute because usually with my essays, I was actually able to figure out what I wanted to say, you know, almost immediately. This was the only one that I actually had to take the time to think about just because it was such a different prompt. But it was, if you can meet a historical figure, who would it be and what would you ask them? So I basically talked about Gaius Octavius because, you know, when I was first thinking about this, I was like, okay, I'm gonna write about Julius Caesar because he's a very popular figure, and I felt like he was a really powerful leader. Like, I remember learning about the Roman Empire in world history, and so how it had risen. Of course, when it fell, it was very drastic, but I felt that being able to have those leadership qualities was very admirable. And then when I had actually done the research, I realized that it was actually Augustus that really possessed those actual leadership qualities. Like Julius Caesar was more of the like warhead almost. Like he was more into like fighting and conquest and all that. So then that's when I ended up switching it to meeting Augustus, and then understanding like I say here, I would love to learn how to emulate his qualities of leadership and capabilities to build a respectable public persona. I feel like these are definitely like very admirable qualities, especially now. You always want to present yourself as a strong leader. So, I felt that, from what I had learned from history, this would be a pretty good person to try to resemble, some of his qualities. And then for the long essays, okay, so this was the essay that actually talked about boxing. You see it's 800 words, a little bit more than the Common App, which was 650. I think this essay ended up being about 700. So, even though it was under the limit, I still felt that it, conveyed my message pretty clearly. So we're interested in learning more about the context in which you have grown up, formed your aspirations, and accomplished your successes. Please describe the most influential factors and challenges in your life that have shaped you to the person you are today. Okay, so do you think I should read this or
No,
just
it's
talk
gonna
about
take
it?
forever and we have to
Okay,
stop it immediately.
cool, 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 cool.
God, I was just
So
about to say, don't do that. But basically, give us like the summary. Give us like 2
yeah, yeah,
sentences.
yeah. So I talk about how, I've done it for such a long time. I also mention why, here, because when my dad was growing up, like he grew up in a very different New York from the New York now. So he'd always tell me about like fights that he got into and stuff. So basically he actually wanted me to learn how to box as a form of self-defense. But, through my time in the sport, I developed, great passion for it, which then, ended up with me, competing when I was 8 years old, and participating in, multiple tournaments over the past, 7, 8 years. Then I just talked about how boxing isn't really what is portrayed. A lot of times people will just say that, oh, boxing is just, about violence and people hurting each other. But no, there's a lot more to it. And like I talk about this mental dexterity that's, apparent in boxing. Like this may not make sense now, but if you really take the time to think about it, boxing is very similar to chess in that you have to think about both what move you make and what move your opponent could make. Of course, the difference is, being chess, you're just moving pieces on a board. Boxing, you're actually, throwing punches and actually trying to hurt your opponent. But like all this, all this technicality to boxing is what really made me fall in love with the sport, and it taught me, many different lessons, and it helped me in many different parts of my life. Like, of course, when you're taking punches to someone, obviously, you're not enjoying it, right? But the will to keep on going and keep on training and keep on fighting, like that's something that, that type of discipline and determination definitely carried over, into school and, just into other challenges that I faced in my life. So like I ended up talking about that, about persevering through challenges and, refusing to give up. As well as I was saying this earlier that, boxing forces you to be independent because, like with a team sport, you might be able to play bad one day, but your teammates can, pick up the slack for you and, you guys can still win. But in boxing, you don't have a team behind you. It's really just you and your opponent in the ring. So, if you mess up, it's only on you. You have nobody else to blame. So I feel like that form of self accountability helped me with my academics, and I talk about here working in group settings because it ensures it's helped me develop, like I said, self accountability, so that when I'm working with others and when I'm working in projects and stuff like that, nobody ever has to worry about, okay, is this person going to do their part? Is this person going to contribute? Like, no, I'm always there. I'm always, up to task. Like, you don't have to worry about me. And then this is just a little closing, talking about how thankful I am because boxing, doing it from such a young age, it's definitely had a massive impact on my life. And then I say here, I hope to be able to help other students in the future through the sport. Okay, and then this is a little bit of a smaller essay, but this one's 500 words telling about a topic that I explored just because of an interest. So basically what happened was in junior year, there was this debate in my AP US history class. We had a debate talking about President FDR, his New Deal programs to deal with the Great Depression. And so, we were just randomly put on sides. So like I was put on the side, saying that, oh, his New Deal programs, they made everything worse. It didn't really work. Now I was never like really into history like that. So, of course I had to do a lot of research. I didn't just know this off the top of my head, but actually, learning about these programs helped me develop an interest in learning about economics actually, because I would, talk about things like inflation, recessions. Um, I had to analyze like different graphs and think about how, certain forms of fiscal and monetary policy played a role in whether the United States was actually able to recover or not. So like, this was all new terminology and ideas that I had to grow accustomed to. However, there was a lot of overlap because even though you might not think economics is really like STEM related, it uses a lot of the skills that you would use in STEM. So they see all of my experience, taking math and science courses played a role in helping me better understand like what was going on and draw the connections. So in this essay, I basically write about, okay, like, this was not something that I was familiar with, but because I had taken these other courses, I was able to better familiarize myself because the skills um, helped me develop a better appreciation for what I was actually reading. And obviously, as I said before, right now I'm taking macroeconomics. Next semester, I'm planning on taking microeconomics. So it's still something that I want to continue exploring. And then in college, hopefully, I can take classes that better explore those topics. So these were the two big essays and the two short responses that I submitted to Questridge at the end of September. And then for the November 1st deadline for MIT, there wasn't actually that much. Thankfully, like some colleges, they gave me like 8 prompts to write. For MIT, it was much shorter. So, obviously, what field of study appeals to you? I put computer science, and then for the reason why, I basically talked about something similar that I talked about with economics, and that there's a use of problem solving skills. Like this analytical and mathematical side to finding a solution to a problem. So I obviously mentioned, that I took math team, and I mentioned that I took computer science classes in high school, which, have motivated me to pursue this. I feel like this was just mainly me, saying like, okay, I know like I have a deep interest in this. I'm not just, trying to BS anything.
And
Um,
also, I just want to remind everyone there's no right or wrong answer in any of these college essay prompts. All they're looking for is to understand who you are as a person. Like, it's not like someone's going to put a wrong answer. So please just keep that in mind. There is no such thing as a wrong answer. They just want to see, like, who is the applicant holistically, who's applying to college, like, what kind of student are we getting?
right. There's no need to make anything up or lie, just to fit a certain persona. Like you want to be completely honest. And I feel like, with what I've written, this was like the most honest form of myself that I could have been. Um, so, there were two optional essays. I took the opportunity to actually write these because I felt like they would actually add to my application. So, they asked about cultural background. So I'll be honest, like obviously it would be like a little bit generic to talk about like, okay, I grew up in a Latino household or whatever, but I felt like that wasn't really something that truly defined me. Like it's never been a critical part of my identity. So instead I talked about a different, aspect of my culture in that, when I was 9 months old, I was baptized and became Catholic. And since then it's been, very fundamental to my beliefs and my understanding of the world. So instead of, talking about, my race, instead I talked about my religion because I felt that it was much more influential in my life. I mentioned,
So
personal experience.
beautiful. I'm
Thank
looking
you.
at it. I'm looking at it. I'm interrupting, whatever. I'm always interrupting, but I just want to share. This is actually a positive spin into religion that is, often kind of like not given in a college application. So this is really like a nice moment to take a step back and say, I have this, opportunity to center myself, and I am, I have religion. And at the end, you say, I see an opportunity to thank God for lessons I've learned. This isn't something you often see in an application. So again, I just want to say major +1, because you're like, you know what, I'm going to talk about religion and how religion keeps me grounded as a
Hmm.
person.
Yeah, I felt like also by including a personal experience, like I was actually able to ensure like to any admissions officers that like, okay, this is actually something that's important. This isn't something that you could just, make up or anything. So obviously, as I said here, I talked about my grandmother. Um, of course, obviously through prayer, it might not have necessarily like actually, made her better, but it gave me the strength to be able to, not get extremely overwhelmed during this difficult time. And, fortunately, the procedure was successful, and, you know, even even today, like I still visit her and talk to her. So, I'm very thankful. And, through my religion, I thank God that everybody in my family has been kept safe, especially after COVID. There's a lot of stress in my family, which I actually ended up talking about in the COVID essay when it asks about extenuating circumstances. So
And I want to take a moment just to step back with religion and really just say what a, brilliant, concept, because you talked about something. And again, it's so important to be sincere in the essays and to be truthful. This is important. Um, I think it's also something that, I kind of like mentioned it to your mom also. I'm like, Sebastian has a guardian angel because he's going and making moves and making places, and you got all this media attention back in the eighth grade. And I will tell you also, I am a person of faith as well. And I do believe I have a guardian angel. There's no way that I am where I am today without someone, batting in my court and, making sure that the evil stays away. So I will say this is a great, brilliant thing to really talk about appreciation. So, what you appreciate about your culture and your identity, and you identify as a Catholic and a person of faith. This is a great, window of words for 150 words where you can really say, you know what, I want to put it in. I also want to add, oh my gosh, I'm going to speak slowly. Pay attention, guys. I am adding this and speaking slowly. This was an optional essay. So I want to totally, make that very, very, can you highlight where it says that? This
yeah.
is really important, everyone. Pay attention. Sebastian opted to write both optional essays. There were two optional essays, 150 words and 250 words. And Sebastian in the application opted. I always tell the kids at Kweller, the optional essays are not optional. And you know what? Say what you will. It's optional. It's optional. But you know what? He wrote it and he got into college and he got into one of the, most elite schools in the planet. So all I'm telling you is I always tell the kids, write the essays. If the essay, why are they there if they don't want you to answer the question? So pay attention because this is a very big deal. So the question is, tell us more about your cultural background, optional. You could have easily not done this and you could have easily not put thought into this, but you did. So I really want to commend you for writing the optional essays on your college application, because there's a good 20 essays that you really don't have to write, but you chose in total to write all of them. And I really just want to say, kudos to you. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So for the last question, talking about COVID, um, obviously, had my family not been impacted at all, I probably would not have ended up writing this essay because I just wouldn't have anything to write. But basically, what ended up happening was, my father, who we were all living together at the time, he ended up losing his job, and he was actually, diagnosed with an illness that required him to have chemotherapy. So, obviously, his immune system wasn't as strong, as it used to be. So during COVID, there was a lot of stress about him. Um, he ended up, staying home once he became unemployed. And so obviously, my family took a big financial hit. Then of course my mother, she was still working. Basically, she was the only form of income that we were getting. Um, so there was a lot of stress at the time, especially because, my sister, she was, I believe, in like sixth or seventh grade. So basically what ended up happening was that I, had to assume the role of the caretaker for my sister during this time. So, you know, I tried my best to keep up with school, but the way I saw it, like it wasn't really that big of a priority for me anymore because I mainly wanted to ensure my family's safety. So that's why, I talk about how challenging it was to stay focused, um, when I was doing that online learning, because there was just so much stress, going around for my family's safety and well-being. So I felt that, I needed to mention that so that the admissions officers would, be able to better understand, like, okay, why would there be like a dip in his grades? Because I believe, beginning first semester freshman year, I had like a 95 average, and then it ended up dropping to a 93. So like obviously, that's pretty significant, 2 points. So I just wanted to explain, my perspective as to why that happened.
So I just want to tell you, so we had another student at Kweller who got into Harvard University, and she specifically wrote about what kind of emotional toll it took on her caring for her little sister during the pandemic. Like that was straight up her Harvard essay, like how difficult it was to be the, babysitter for the mother figure, the role. So I just want you to know, do not be afraid of sharing what it means for you to take on a role as a caretaker in your family. And reverse parenting is really hard. And and you hear your dad has a terminal, he's very ill, he's getting chemotherapy. You are, you kind of like opening up your life. And I really want to take a moment. Number one, I want to tell all of you, so pay attention. This is an optional essay. You don't have to write this. So I want to hugely commend you for choosing to write about this. And number two, I really want to thank you for sharing this with us, because this is really important. This is a very vulnerable part of who you are, and you'll, talk about it. In my own family, my father suffered a heart attack while I was in the middle of applying to law school. I'm an only child. I actually have not even talked about it for years, but I wrote about this in my essay, what it meant for me to realize, number one, I'm an only child. Like I better, get it together real fast. And I need to step it up in my home, because this is, getting bad from worse very quickly. So you really mature in 5 minutes when you have these kinds of circumstances in your life and in your home. And it makes you very strong, and it really makes you appreciate your health, and it makes you appreciate what you have. So thank you so much for sharing this with us. Thank you for, just being open about what you chose to include about your life in your application.
Yeah, I just want to ensure full transparency. So, I just want to make sure that, everybody understands like exactly what it is that, I was presenting to the admissions officers.
Yeah, and you were not surfing through high school just having to study and go home. Like you were
Right.
dealing with a lot of emotions at home
Mhm.
as well. Thank you so much. So what's the rest that we're looking at? Interviews and letters of
Yeah.
recommendation.
So I'll talk about letters of recommendation first. So I ended up getting one STEM and one humanities letter. I believe that's what's actually required for MIT. Um, so of course, I was very careful about who I asked, because I wanted to make sure that they saw the best version of me. So I ended up asking my AP chemistry teacher, as well as my AP US history teacher. The reasoning for this is that, one, last year my AP chemistry was actually my best class. Like that was the one where I really excelled and did well in tests and in labs, and I was participating. So I was extremely active, and my teacher knew that, about the boxing. So like he like had, a pretty good idea of who I was as a person, as a student. It's a similar case with my US history teacher. He actually ended up nominating me for this program that I didn't end up putting on my application, but I have it here. It's called the Gilder Lehrman Student Advisory Council. So he ended up nominating me as well as some other students, and we ended up going to this event at the Harvard Club last year. So it was a really great experience to have. So I just felt that I would be very comfortable with him writing a recommendation on my behalf for college. Yeah. And then there's the interview. So MIT, they try they to get an interview with basically all their applicants, and it says highly encouraged, which you already know that means that you pretty much have to do it. I believe like I saw that the admission rate for those people who chose not to do the interview was like less than 1%. So if you're applying there, I highly recommend that you do the interview. Um, I ended up doing it on Zoom just because of availability. My interviewer was like a director of cardiology somewhere, so he didn't actually have the time during the day to do it. So I ended up doing it at like 10:30 at night one day. Um, and he actually had not seen my application, so he didn't know anything about me. This is like his first time just meeting me. So it wasn't really more of like questions. It was just more like having a conversation with the person. And so, basically the first thing he said was like, obviously we introduced each other, and then he basically said, "Tell me about yourself." So basically what I ended up doing was I thought about, my entire application and, the biggest points that I wanted to make about who I am as a person. And I basically presented those to him. So I talked about, my family. I talked about, the most important things, going on in my life, which of course ended up, coming up to boxing. And so I feel like there was some luck that actually played into this, because my interviewer, he didn't end up telling me this until the end of the interview, but he had been doing MMA for a few years, so he already had, an introduction to the combat sports and like, the toughness and the dexterity that was apparent there. So basically that's what our conversation ended up really being about for like an hour and a half. Um, he asked me a few questions about my school, but ultimately it was talking about that. So I feel like, when you're doing an interview, you don't want to just be answering questions, and trying to think of things that you like memorize on a flashcard or something. Like instead you want to be more natural and have like a fluid conversation rather than.
Wait. So let's all take a step back. Okay. So your interviewer was a fancy schmancy busy Manhattan cardiologist with like
Mhm.
sub-zero free time. So he schedules with you. So this is really funny because your mom actually texted me like, is this even real?
Oh yeah,
Because
I remember.
10:30 p.m. interview. And then we like looked him up on LinkedIn and we're like, he looks legit. Like, I think he's real. But anyway, so you agree to a 10:30 interview with an ultra busy cardiologist who has zero time to meet with you all day long. And he finally meets with you. And how long is your interview?
About an hour and a half, I would say.
90 minutes of interview time.
Yeah.
So I just want to let all of you know that you work with what you have. So you met at 10:30, you finished around midnight, correct?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, even though it was really late, I actually really enjoyed, talking to him. Like we were able to get along really well, and I feel like it definitely helped my application because, it's not like, okay, I look good on paper, but when you speak to me, I'm like almost a robot, almost like I was very natural, and I was able to, portray myself in a certain light. So I feel like, that definitely helped my MIT application.
When you go through like your interview, that can you just give, what do you feel were like the most helpful parts of surviving a 90-minute interview with an extremely busy Manhattan cardiologist who's an MIT graduate and has no time during the day whatsoever to talk to you?
I mean, the thing with the interview is that, they said that the time that it takes doesn't actually matter. What matters is them ensuring that they actually get like a complete understanding of you. So, the reason that it ended up being so long was just because me and the interview were able to get along so well. I actually have his phone number, and I messaged him when I had actually gotten into MIT. So like I'm still in contact with him. Like that was just, naturally something that happened. It wasn't like something that I had planned or, determined or anything. Like, yeah, I was a little nervous at first, but you have to remember that you're just speaking to another human being. It's not like, they're trying to scare you or anything. They're trying their best to help you. And he actually expressed that to me at the very beginning, like saying, I haven't looked at your application, but everything that, you tell me here, I'm only going to use it to help your application. Nothing here is to hurt you. So I
That's
felt like
so,
that
yeah.
that like helped relieve me, in a way, and it was able to make my answers like, a lot flow a lot better and be able to tell my story, much better.
And then, so in terms of your, can you go just on Spotlight? You don't need to do the share screen anymore. Ah, it's so blue. I love it. Okay. So there are so many kids who are listening to this webinar, and and you are really a source of hope because your mom didn't go to MIT and your dad didn't go to MIT and your sister's younger. So yeah, I'm just saying, like, you're really the one who's the trailblazer in the family. And truth be told, a lot of people don't even know that MIT is a whole separate application and there's like 13 different little essays and everything has to be done so early for Questbridge. I mean, there's so many things. I will say, yes, of course, it's great through Kweller you did learn, but the truth is you really took the initiative by yourself and you're like, I'm gonna figure everything out and I'm gonna learn. My question is, can you give advice to the younger students who are listening? on what kind of keeps you going. Like, how are you so proactive? That's really what's amazing. Like, what made you proactive? Because you could have totally like let life happen to you.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna ask like a little more, then I'll stop talking. Back in the seventh grade and sixth grade, when you were basically dismissed by, your school and people who you look up to and people who you seek as mentors, telling you, acceptance to a specialized high school is practically impossible. You're Hispanic, forget this, don't even bother. Like, people were just like kind of laughing off your desire to go and to try for specialized high school, to try to get in on scholarship to all these private schools. I mean, you were ultimately dismissed and there were naysayers. What kind of made you say, hey, I'm young, but I'm not listening to you adults? Like, what was that moment?
I mean, in seventh grade, I feel like it was mainly my mother. Like she's definitely been like my rock throughout all these years. She's always been, because there have been many times where I doubted myself, and I remember even after taking the SHSAT, I was worried that what if I didn't do well enough to get into Stuyvesant, and she just kept reassuring me that whatever happens is going to be all right. Like she helped me get through all that emotional stress that I had to deal with. So when I think about like, oh yeah, there was a lot of doubt that I received when I said I want to go to Stuyvesant. She was the one who believed in me, she was the one who pushed me. So in the end, like, I had complete trust and faith in her, and so because she had complete trust in me, I ended up believing in myself that I could do it. I didn't think about what these other people were saying, because of the fact that they didn't really know me. Yeah, they were my teachers, but they I never like had that connection with them. So it was mainly my mother that helped me stay focused and stay grounded.
And then as you were working on applications and essays, and I want to really emphasize, you are a child of the pandemic. You are a child of something unprecedented in the history of the world. How did you continue to deal with the responsibilities of high school and dealing with a terminal illness in your family and dealing with the stress of unemployment with your main provider? I mean, you really went through a lot of hardships. I wasn't sure, to be honest, during the webinar, if you were going to discuss them. Like, you and I didn't script this out, but I'm really like touched that you are sharing this so openly with everyone here, that it was not an easy road. It's
Right.
not like you just went to Stye and you cruise. You dealt with a lot of shocking and stunning stress. So what kept you going during such a hard time in your life? How did you navigate school, dealing with the hardships that you endured while you were ninth, 10th, and 11th and 12th grade?
I feel like um, school actually was like a distraction from everything that was going on. School and boxing, they both helped me. Obviously, during the pandemic, I wasn't able to do boxing because gyms were closed and everything. But so that's where I feel like that's why I began to falter, because I didn't have that outlet where I didn't have to think about any challenges that I was facing. So that's why that was probably the most difficult time for me. But then when I was able to go back to school junior year, even though I was still dealing with all of the stress in my family, school basically allowed me to like take a step back and not have to worry about these things. Like it helped keep my mind on track, rather than just becoming so immersed into everything that was going on. Because had I just been focused on all the hardships that I went through, I definitely wouldn't be where I am. Like, I remember even when I was writing my essays, like I took a moment and I went upstairs, from my bedroom, and I told my mother, I was like, wow, like writing these things made me realize, I've been through a lot. Like, I've had to deal with a lot of stuff. But when you're going through it, and this is something that has my mother helped me develop, is like, you never stop. You always keep going. Like, she basically helped me develop like a very fast pace, in which I never actually took the time to slow down and think about, okay, this is going wrong in my life. Instead, it was like, okay, this happened. Now it's time to keep moving forward. And so, I never actually ended up having the time once I was back in school to actually, really think about everything that was going on. And, that's basically what helped me stay on track throughout these few years.
So before you got into Stuyvesant, the principal then of Stuyvesant High School invited you to enter the school. And can you kind of just take a moment and tell us about that experience, because we have a cool surprise for you.
Okay. Yeah, I remember Principal Contreras inviting us over. It was after school, and we went into his office. We talked for a little bit. He was extremely welcoming. Um, of course, he said congratulations and everything. And at the time, I was actually unsure, because even though I had gotten into Stuyvesant and this was the goal, I had gotten into another private school, Regis, and Regis is a very, very good school in Manhattan, but I didn't know whether or not I wanted to go to Stuyvesant or Regis. I was going back and forth. So I had actually had a tour of Regis. They had a tour for acceptance students about a few days before I was able to get the tour from Principal Contreras. And at the time, I was like, okay, maybe I want to go to Regis. And then he sat us down, we spoke with him, and he talked about the comparisons. We ended up having a tour of the school. He told us about all the offerings that they had there. And obviously this is not something that normally happens, so the fact that he actually went out of his way to welcome us in and actually sit down and speak with us about the pros and cons of going to Stuyvesant, I felt like, okay, now I have to go here, because it's like I have somebody who's looking out for me, and who really wants me to succeed. So that's what really made me want to go to Stuyvesant. And ultimately, looking back these past 4 years, I definitely think that I made the right choice. This is a school that I'm still in love with. Yeah.
So we have a surprise for you, because we invited a very special person to congratulate you. And everyone in this room is going to be really impressed. It is actually Eric Contreras is here. I'm going to ask him to unmute. Okay.
Hi, Francis.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Eric, for responding. And Eric wants to wish you a huge congratulations.
Sebastian, I got home from work. I changed into non-work clothes, but I'm gonna take the video, put the video on, because it's you. And I want you to see me, and I see you.
Aww.
I knew you were special the day I met you, and I've met a lot of teenagers. And Regis would have been lucky to have you. So Stuyvesant lucked out. I think that you clearly smart, but that's the beginning. I think we spoke about your passions, boxing, mathematics, your poise, your maturity. Even then, you were 13. So it's always, as an educator, it's always a proud moment to see someone you met at 13, 4 years later, complete an arc. And so full disclosure, anyone, Sebastian and I already had a phone call where I congratulated him. And I'm just here to say that publicly, that I'm extremely proud. And MIT is lucky to have you.
Thank you. I
remember even as a 9th grader, you were, scoring almost perfect SAT scores. So, but that's a given. That's actually not it, right? That's important. All your academic distinctions are important, but I think what makes you stand out and made you stand out when you were a 13-year-old pre-high school student was your poise, your command for clear understanding of your path, your maturity and ownership of your own destiny and choices. I remember that conversation when we met. Most of the talking was you and I, right? It wasn't parent, it wasn't you were there with adults, but we were talking, you were talking.
Yeah. And
I think that that's what people see in you, right? All the academic accolades, the scores, that's special, but what's really, really special is all the things that make you you.
Thank you.
So I'm very proud.
Oh my God, Sebastian, I'm actually getting emotional. This is so awesome. Oh, this is horrible. Sebastian, you are a big success story for so many of us. We are so lucky that you held this webinar. Thank you for being open and honest. Thank you for being a leader and a trailblazer, and you are going big places in your life. We are so proud of you. You are always a big deal, but the fact that you are passing the torch and telling the children who are listening and the parents, you are giving so many people hope right now. Thank you so much. Thank you, Principal Contreras, for joining and for congratulating and for your heartfelt sincerity and for meeting Sebastian Acevedo when he got accepted to Stuyvesant, because you probably changed his life, because at that point he decided he's gonna go for Stuyvesant, as intimidating as that was at that.
I knew then, and I'm the lucky one, so I'm lucky. It won't be the last time I hear of you, Sebastian.
We're so excited. Congratulations and thank you. I would like every single person to take a moment to say thank you. I'm going to ask everyone in the meeting to take a moment, and also please to Zoom. Thank you. I'm going to take a moment. We're going to say thank you to everyone. So please take a minute. We're going to say thank you, and then we're going to close. So everyone take a moment. We're going to count to 3. And we're going to say thank you so much, Sebastian. Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Amazing. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Keep making us
you.
proud. Okay. Good. We're going to come with 50 kids and visit your college dorm. All right. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you to everyone who listened, and thank you for the support. And thank you. And wait, let's say goodbye to your mom. Is your mom nearby? Is she there?
I can get her. I'll be back really quickly.
Mommy. Yeah. Everyone, let's get Sebastian's mom in the Zoom for a moment. Okay. Please bear with me. Okay. Hold on, guys. While Sebastian's getting his mom, I just want to say that this is a very special moment, not just for Sebastian, but for the family, and we really want to thank them. Is she nearby, or is she letting you do your Zoom? All right. Well, you know what? This is a special moment.
I think like she went to park the car or something. I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fine. I want to take a moment to just say thank you to your entire network and your support system, and we are so thankful to be part of this webinar. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Sebastian, we can't wait to see you win the Nobel Prize and go to the moon and I can't even tell you how excited we are to hear your next step in life. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Okay, bye, everyone. Good evening. Bye.